likes to go through the darkroom door, believe it or not. There she goes. She's going to go through the door with us. We're sending animals through together. Good luck, get in there. Assuming they're by themselves. Now make them disappear. All right. Me? We are in the lab. Get rid of some ambient noise here. So anyway, this is my luck room. My father and my grandfather were both photographers. Dad still does it. He does little magazine assignments in Kansas, but they both got me into photography, and they both had dark rooms. And as long as I can remember, I've always had a lab. I, built several of them in bathrooms and plumbed water out of the water closet and where the washers and dryers are into my apartment bedrooms, so I could have some place to process film and make prints. When we moved here 7 years ago, I was very, very happy I'd finally have some space. And here we have it. So I'll give you a little walk around for anybody who's not spent any time in the darkroom. There's typically two sides, a wet side and a dry side. This is my wet side. This is where you would process your film and then later process all your prints. And you'll set up at least 3 trays, typically your developer, some sort of water, or some people use a stop bath, and then picture on the other side. She wants to go out. You ready? She has a short attention span. You gonna go with her, Kodak? Okay. And then someplace to wash your prints afterwards. Interesting things about analog photography these days is that there's a little bit of a resurgence in people wanting to be wet photographers again. So the gear has started to become a little more precious. 9, 8 years ago, when I was gathering these pieces together, just about every one of these components I got for free or for very, very little money. The sink literally was free. I had to build a stand for it. Some of these enlargers were almost free. A dry matting press that I have was free. But now when you go looking for them, people want money for it, or they're just hanging on to the really, really good gear themselves. This timer was my grandfather Howard's, and I've had it since he died in 1982. And although I've had several other of these very common Gray Lab timers, this one is the one that I've always kept. And it continues, it'll rust on the top because I set wet things up there, and I'll strip it apart every 5 or 6 years and get rid of the rust and then paint it again. And it's an old friend that when the day does come that I don't have a darkroom anymore, I'm too old to work in a darkroom, I'll keep that and use it for timing eggs, I guess. I don't know. I've spent my whole life in love with analog photography. My father and my grandfather both were photographers, but they made their livings doing it, and I was never able to do it, so I'm able to do it for fun. I can photograph anything I like. And this afternoon, I'm here with my buddy Forrest, taking a look at my wet lab. This is my 6th darkroom that I've had since I moved out of my house when I was a kid, and I think it's probably the nicest one I've had. And I'm probably going to have to move it again here in about 2 years. But we have our wet side and your dry side. Darkroom sink is pretty good size. I got it for free. I had to drive down to Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina to pick it up. It's Craigslist ad. So I spend a lot of time down here. Maybe I'll show you the other end of the lab where all the business happens under the enlarger. This is pictures of my son Matthew and my daughter Trina when they were baptized in the early 2000s. I've got the ideas where I want them to be.
All right.
And I'll zap the lights real quick. Give it a moment while this thing heats up. So while the safe light's warming up, this is the heart of the darkroom. It's a this is a English enlarger made by the DeVere company that is all electric. The carrier controls I can run electrically, which is nice if you're doing a lot of changes in sizes of prints. However, I usually don't. I print one size as much as I can. It's very, very heavy. It'll print up to a 4x5 inch negative. And if you're going to do that, you have to use bigger lenses. I keep my lenses nearby. And it carries a nice multigrade head, which I'd never seen before. I met my friend Gary, and he had them on all of his enlargers. And it works really nice. Below here I keep everything that's important nearby, all my various sizes of negative carriers, and the one I like the most is this oddball one here for printing wide lux negatives. Fits just perfectly. These are what's called speed carriers. Old enlargers, or most enlargers, when you want to put your negative in it, you have to lever open the carrier and slide it in and close it. This one's got a cassette built into here. And you just slide it in and it stops exactly where it needs to be every single time. Let's kill that light. I'll kill this over here too. And there we have our negative. And I would it's not a lot. Oh, my glass carriers. I forgot I had these. Yeah, this is an anti-Newton glass carrier for 4x5. As you see, it's been chipped, but it still does its job just fine. That's probably why Gary wrote on there, "Don't drop it." Oh, there's my. I've been looking for these too. That's Jim Marshall there with Ramble and Jack Elliott. Jim's my big influence. And here's Jim in the mirror behind a beardless Jerry Garcia. Jim invented the selfie. I think this is at the Winterland Theater, probably 1966 or 1967. Yeah, it probably still has his, yeah, that's got his Union Street address on the back with a new note. Yeah, 68 Backstage at Winterland. And this is his 4,358th roll of film, frame number 28. I think I put him in there when I was. So the other end of the lab is empty. I used to have a, that's my guard dog, Kodak. Used to have a wet lab for processing film down there, and I found that I wasn't really processing enough film to have a nitrogen burst agitation processing system, which really is something you'd have if you're running a newspaper with a dozen photographers in it. It's overkill. So I sold it all off, and if I want to process film, I just use the big sink for it. I haven't missed it. I only have one film camera left. It's a wide lux panoramic camera, and I probably only use it 2 or 3 times a year. Clearly not enough. Can't think anything else that's interesting here. I think every dark room should have music. So I have a stereo in here, and ordinarily it'd be on, and put a gelatin filter in it so the light of the stereo won't cause any problems with the paper. Took it all apart, got the glass out of it, and cut it, and taped it in there. Looks like it was made that way. Nice. Yeah. I'm realizing I need to get back in here. I've got a backlog of images to print out for projects I've imagined. Thankfully, I don't have anybody waiting on me to produce images. I'm trying to print out some portfolios to maybe try to sell, raise funds for a book or an exhibit somewhere. That's usually what every photographer is trying to do, is drum up interest for their own work. Stuff might still be good. I have a magnetic mixer. I mix up my chemistry, but I'm not ready to make any paper developer today. Vent back on. It keeps the air stirred up since there's never anybody in here. Can I get in here? Wanna go? All right, in the door. Come on. Ready? This was in Budapest, Hungary, probably in 1996. I'm on the roof of the hotel we were working in, and we're on the, I believe, the Buda side. The other side's past, and that's the Seine River. On the other side is the big Parliament or Castle building, whatever it is. And just over my right shoulder is the chain bridge, which connects the two cities together.
What were you doing there?
I was working for the White House Communications Agency. I was in the Army, and President Clinton had gone to Budapest for a summit. And it's not the Seine River. I think it's the Danube River.
Sounds right.
I got a D in geography, so thankfully for the internet we can look these things up. Love photographing bluegrass musicians. It's been my thing since I was 16. About a year before I did my first bluegrass festival, I ran across an article in Guitar Player magazine of a guy named Jim Marshall, who, starting in the 1960s, became the preeminent backstage rock and roll photographer. He did a lot of onstage stuff too, but he had this charisma and this personality and his tenacity, and he became good friends with most of the people he was photographing. And I found this article about him. He rough-looking guy with a Leica around his shoulder, and you know, I want to be like that guy. I ended up in San Francisco on a trip and spent the day with Jim Marshall. I wrote some stuff about it, but we pretty much stayed in his house and drank John Powers whiskey and had Italian food and looked at pictures and talked about cameras and showed me his collection of guns in a big safe he kept in his closet. And by the end of the evening it was all over with, and I couldn't believe I just spent the day with him. And these pictures I shot of him in his kitchen. He's spent most of his time on the phone arguing with lawyers, which is, I guess, something the more successful you become in anything you do, the less you get to do that, and the more you get to deal with lawyers and the legal aspects of life. I have some prints laying around. I've been going through my work. It's been about 30 years that I've been taking pictures of bluegrass musicians, and I don't feel that old, but it started in 1986, and here it is, 2017, so 31 years. The first fellow I ever got to photograph was Doc Watson. This one wasn't that year. This was 2003 in Tucson. Doc is somebody whose music I had listened to as a kid, a little kid, and his voice and his guitar playing sounded like my mother's own voice to me. So I got to photograph him in Winfield when I was a teenager, and then this time in Tucson. And the one thing I really loved the most about photographing Doc was, of course, that he's blind, but all the time I spent with him in the dressing room, he never looked at me or gave me any camera presence, which is irritating when you're trying to not take those kinds of photos. He's actually, you can't tell, but he's whistling. The guy who's on stage is playing something, and Doc is whistling along to it, enjoying it. There, that was a picture I shot of Doc when I was 16 years old in Winfield, Kansas. And I was ecstatic to be sitting in a folding chair next to him, and I can smell him. I can smell that he's a smoker. I can hear his chair creaking underneath him, and watched him put his harmonica into his holder and tune up his guitar and talk with the other people in the room, and it infected me from then on. I wanted to be backstage with musicians like this, taking pictures of them. And this one was the first picture I ever had published, and I've actually got a copy of this coming to me in the mail. This was in Fret's magazine, 1988, and it's Doc on the left, and that's Jack Lawrence, who's been his sideman for 30 years, tuning up right before they get to go on stage. It's quite a day for me. Still feel like I'm sitting there.